conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4NEWS, Global TV, V4 Stream, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Organ Donation India Foundation and Gyan. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic. And today's topic is not only current, but very, very relevant. And topic is 0 year. 0 year is the beginning of any new system or regime. Today, we will try to evaluate the possibilities of 0 year in India. We will be discussing about 0 academic year, 0 year for MSME and other services and its implications. The demand for a 0 academic year is being raised as there is no respite from the coronavirus. The online classes going on now are an emulsion of real classroom and also a travesty of education. Moreover, the availability of digital devices continues to cause a huge gap in society. It is in this context, the demand for this year to be considered a 0 academic year is emerging from various quarters of society. What is the 0 academic year? Our educational process is structured in such a way that it progresses hierarchically from one stage to the other. Each academic year, the cognitive abilities that the student acquires through the teaching learning process from the basis for the next year. Therefore, it is imperative that every student pass through each step as they are connected spirally. If students are not able to successfully complete an academic year, it deprives from the basics to progress to higher levels. But this is a unique situation in which no student is able to complete the minimum requirements for getting promoted to the next level. This is where the discussion of the 0 academic year comes into play. A 0 academic year makes all students eligible to proceed to the next stage without any screening. To put it in a little more clearly, 0 academic year means giving everyone the right to enter the next level without the mandated teaching learning process. A 0 academic year is one during which no academic activities are conducted, including exams and classes. There are too many options about it. Let me clear it that no country in the world declared this year as a 0 year. In fact, many countries are already reopened schools. The Union Ministry of Education will not be declaring the academic year 2020-2021 a 0 academic year due to the coronavirus pandemic. The possibility was ruled out during a Parliamentary Standing Committee meeting on Human Resource Development, according to a report that while answering the queries raised by the MPs about classes, universities, admissions and exams, Secretary of Higher Education, Mr. Amit Khare said that the new batch of students would likely to be joining by November, December, and classes and examinations for the students currently enrolled would also be conducted. But this report is as of last year when we were facing the COVID-19 pandemic 2020. But now again, it has come back and again the schools, colleges all are shut because of the COVID returns. So whether we should go for the 0 year, because the last year in the academic year 2020-2021, very little or rather no classes took place. Whatsoever classes have been taking place online, everybody knows the conditions because of digital divide, because of the many students who are in rural area where there is no proper infrastructure for about the internet or the devices were not available. So the education was not imparted equally to all the students. So there is a demand again, why not declare as a 0 year? It can be either we will freeze this year, let it be wiped off from all the students' life this year, and let them again study the same class, but their age will be considered what was the last year age. That is one option. The other option is, which government is doing, that promoting everyone to the next class without the examinations. Although there was a move the day before yesterday where the CBSE exams of 12th, there is some plan has been given, suggested by the ministry and to the state governments, and the state governments are mulling about what to do about the exams. Similarly, we will also discuss the impact on the financial sector, We will also discuss the impact on the banking sector. We will also discuss on the general overall view about this particular thing. But before I will invite my guest of today's program, I would like to inform you very happily that media conference with Lal Goel and Global TV, along with the other channels like V4 Group, on this platform for the whatsoever discussions we have taken place earlier, which many of those suggestions which were given to the government were incorporated in the one-man expert commission's report, that is Dr. C.V. Anand Bose IAS report to the government, and many of those suggestions have been accepted by the government. Few of them are like National Registry for Workers, One Nation, One Ration Card, and recently I was informed that international broadcaster, the suggestion has been accepted by the government of India, which shows that if there are positive suggestions, this government is ready to accept those positive suggestions which are for the benefit of the society and the nation in general, the nation in large. So if we will get some good suggestion even from today's discussion, I'm sure those discussion, if the suggestions will be put forward to the government may consider those suggestions. So now I would like to invite my first guest, and I would like to inform you that all the guests today are authority in their own fields. They have tremendous experience in working in different sectors, and we have selected from all the different sectors who can represent in one way the society at large. My first guest is, I would like to invite and introduce, he is Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS is one-man expert commission on labor to prepare an action plan for the welfare and development of the workforce in the context of COVID-19. He is also the principal advisor, Government of India Heritage Project. He was former head of disaster management, Government of India, and Central Drought Relief Commissioner, Government of India. He was the Vice Chancellor of National Museum, University of Delhi. He has authored 40 books in English, Malayalam, and Hindi, including novels, short stories, and essays. 4 of his books have become bestsellers. 4 books on Vastu and architecture and 1 book on housing received prestigious the Sharjah International Book Fair Award. Dr. Bose is an housing expert, innovator, writer, orator, and visionary. The path-breaking institutions set up by him, such as Nimriti Kendra Building Center, District Tourism Council, and Habitat Alliance, have been replicated at the state, national, and global level. He was the head of the prestigious Supreme Court Committee on the Treasures of Sri Padmabaswamy Temple. Dr. Bose addressed United Nations General Assembly and specialized sessions 5 times on various international issues. Dr. Bose is a recipient of 31 national and international awards, including United Nations Global Best Practice Award. He also received prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru Fellowship. Kerala government termed him Lord of Ideas. Former Prime Minister Mr. Manmohan Singh called him inspired civil servant, and our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi called him man of ideas. Welcome, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, on our show. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, this idea, if you recall, you have suggested in one of our media conference earlier, why not declare this year as a 0 year? And taking the cue and lead from you, I asked this question for last almost 1.5 to 2 months to many of my panelists. Either they were not clear or they were clear, but they were not ready to give an answer immediately. But the sense which I sensed in this last 2 months is that people want something where at least the last year which has gone can become, because like right now it has become a curse, but it can become a boon for those if we will do something, if the government of India will take some action. So to discuss your own idea, which you have floated about the 0 year, we would like to know from you about 0 year, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, IAS, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. I am privileged to discuss this idea with such a distinguished panelists here. I'm sure that whatever is lacking in clarity will be made clear by the wisdom of those who will be participating in this meeting as panelists. Now, COVID or the pandemic has taken our lives, has taken away our time. To save the lives of the people, India has done quite a lot, and we are on a war path against the enemy. But at the same time, I think we have not done much, or we are yet to do something substantial. The worst affected people in society who have lost 1 year for no fault of theirs are the students. There are also other sections of society which have lost one precious year because of the pandemic. I think we should have an agenda of how to tackle this situation. If we declare the year as a 0 year, I think there is a lot which the student community will gain. Any reform, any experiment in the field of education has to be done with a lot of care and concern. We should not take knee-jerk reactions in the field of education. Having said it, I feel that there is a strong case for introducing the concept of 0 year in the field of academics. There are, of course, various ways in which the 0 year concept can be implemented among the students. One is the easiest way. You write off this 1 year, give them all promotion. But that may not satisfy the student community. They would like to prove themselves. In that case, later on, give them an opportunity to improve their grading, and prove themselves. That is one model. The other model is, which I'm putting across to the expert panelists here. See, there is an opportunity here. It is not a threat. There is an opportunity here. And what is that opportunity? If we have a futuristic projection, you know, the national education, new education policy, national education policy, that speaks about evaluation, not to measure the rote learning of the students, but to evaluate the overall development of the student's personality. In that case, even without teaching, even without an examination for 1 year, why don't we evolve a means of testing the overall development, the absorption capacity, the knowledge base, and the personality of the student? If such an evaluation is done, I'm sure that will certainly reflect, it will be holding a mirror before the actual personality of the student. Maybe there is an opportunity in this. And now, there are many people, especially parents and teachers, who subscribe to this idea. In Telangana, in many other states, the parents are of the view that the 0 year concept has to be introduced in the field of education. And internationally, I happen to read in the New York Times that Kenya has already decided to implement this. Therefore, it's a concept which is getting takers here and there. Now, in which way it is to be implemented is a matter of detail, which I think the experts will be able to do that. Now, the students are not the only group for whom 0 year becomes relevant. There is a forgotten section of society around us. During the lockdown, who took care of the mental health of this nation? Who took care of the nation about starvation? It is the semi-literate, illiterate, and of course literate housewives. During this 0 year, for them it is not 0 year. For them it is double the year. Because they have to work harder. They have to keep the country going. It can really be said it is a kitchen cabinet which runs this country, which is running this country. Why not? Why not recognize their service to the nation by giving them an ex gratia during this 1 year directly into their account? I think that's a kind of thanksgiving which the nation owes to the housewives, to the mothers. They kept us above starvation. They kept up the mental health of the country. Therefore, that also can be another derivative from this concept of 0 year. Then, of course, we did not starve. We have even now doubled the buffer stock that is required to feed this country. And there has been bumper crop last year. Who is responsible for that? The farmers. And for the farmers, 0 years would mean their lawn should be, I don't say write-off, but it will deferred at least. That, of course, is for the banking experts to say that. Some relief for them for having toiled hard for this country in adverse circumstances. As Shakespeare says, feet are the uses of adversity. The farmer found that feet are the uses of adversity. He toiled hard and produced more. Therefore, we are not starving. The 0 year means he should be given relief during this 1 year. The loan that he has taken, the liabilities that he has to the government or to the private parties, that has to be deferred. And also other incentives have to be thought out for them. A third category are the small business, micro business, micro and mini, of course. Then the street vendors, the lowest, the lowliest, and the least, as Tagore would put it, they have financial burden. They have a lot of liabilities which is accrued during this 1 year. Giving them the 0 year would mean a great relief for 1 year. If anything more can be given to them during this period, well and good. That is for the experts to decide on the details. Now, of course, we have other sections. You see, the women, of course, I said, for the women, yes, why not this 0 hour be termed Shiro hour? Because they were the heroes, the women were the heroes. There was 0 hour can become the Shiro hour. Why not the government of India and the state governments and the union territories come up with the new projects in honor of the women of this country for the great effort which they have done to save this country during this pandemic? Why not come up with national and state-wise schemes, centrally sponsored or otherwise, commemorating the great service done by therefore, zero projects can be implemented, which will have a long-lasting impact. And now, there is nothing new in that what we are seeing. The 0 hour concept has already been there. When the Julian calendar was changed to Gregorian calendar, I know Rajshekhar and others would know this. At that time, there was a loss of 10 days. That is not because of any pandemic. It is because of the exigencies of change of calendar. So this is not something which is new. And in the papal history, the period of one pope has been totally deleted. I do not want to go into the details of that. So this is not something which the world has not done earlier. Well, now we have to decide whether there is a need for this. If there is a need for this, of course, there is a way out. Where there is a will, there is a way. 1 year can be saved, even from the lives of various other sections of society who have been badly affected by this. Now, we may think this is only a matter of students, this is only a matter of households. No, this is a matter of the whole globe. In fact, I would even say some institution like the United Nations should market the concept of 0 hour and make it acceptable to the entire world. Otherwise, there will be problems of adjustments if only one country decides to do that. Therefore, this is a global issue. I think it's a square issue, squarely drawn, and is there before the whole world to take a decision on this. If you feel that it's a case of India, it's a case of students, no, it's a common cause. If serious things can be stated in a lighter vein, in a farmhouse, there was a rat in the cellar. The rat once overhears the farmer telling his wife, "We have brought a new rat trap." The rat knew what it means. The rat suddenly went and told the hen in the house, "They are bringing a rat trap." The hen said, "That's none of my business. What have I to go to do with a rat trap?" Then it went to the cow and said, "The farmer, our master, is bringing a rat trap." The cow said, "What does it matter to me? None of my business. It is your business. You take care." That night, they heard some noise within the rat trap. With expectation, the farmer's wife rushed through the rat trap and found it is a cobra which unwittingly had got into the rat trap. The cobra bit the farmer's wife. And a lot of people came. The family doctor, village doctor came. A lot of people were to be fed. So the hen was killed to prepare chicken for the visitors who came in to seek the welfare of the bitten lady. So the hen is not there. Then a lot of money was spent on treatment, and the farmer could not afford it. So he had to sell the cow to the butcher. The cow is also gone. The only being which survived there is a rat. So we may feel this is not the business of everybody this is a business of only the students, or this is a business of only India. No, this affects all. During a pandemic, all these suggestions, all these problems have a universal application. Therefore, once the experts apply their mind on this and take the pros and cons of the issue from various angles, it has got economic implications, not only for education, social implications are there, commercial implications are there, and it has also implications for international relations and the future. Therefore, after a detailed study of all aspects of the case, I think a kind of differential approach is required in 0 year. It's not that tomorrow Adanis and Ambanis can come and say it is 0 year, so please return the 1 lakh crores of corporate tax that we paid. No, it is not that the states and the businessmen will come and say there is 0 year, so please return the GST that we have. No, there should be a differential proposition in this, and which are the sectors that could be benefited by this, and which are the sectors which will be badly affected. Because we have an expert in banking here. Almost all suggestions about the implementation of 0 year tends to waiving of the dues to the bank. Then, of course, the banks cannot survive. I'm a student of literature, where in Hamlet it is said, neither a borrower nor a lender be, which means there cannot be any banking. There is no borrower, no lender. There cannot be any banking. So in the name of national priorities, if 0 year is introduced, that should not lead to the breakdown of the banking industry. Therefore, this is an idea. This is an idea worth pursuing. This is an idea which has got takers among the teachers, among the parents, among the students. But how to implement it is something which has been thought of and discussed in detail. I'm sure that the expert panelists will certainly do a great job about it. After listening to them, if Goel Saab is kind enough to give me another chance, then I will give my further opinions on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. And what Dr. C.V. Anand Bose has highlighted, that the 0 year is not only for the students, but it is for others. And for the students, he has given the options, but for others, one idea I would like to highlight, which he has given, is for the house lady or the women. And he says that they are working day and night. For them, there was no 0 year. And because of them, the mental health, the physical health of everybody was there during the pandemic. And according to Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, that we must honor them during this 0 year. We must give them compensation so that they should know that they have done something for the society at large. That is as far as women are concerned. He also mentioned about the MSMEs. He has also mentioned about the international relationship, because according to him, if it will be taken by the government of India only, then the problem will come about the other countries. So he says, why not United Nations should decide and declare this last year as a 0 year, because pandemic was there everywhere in the world, not only in India, and everyone has suffered. So this is what he says, and he is very confident that if something come out with a good way, definitely government of India may consider, because it, after all, if anything which is beneficial for the society, for the country, is most welcome by this government. Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, for giving your initial opening remarks. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep is LLB, postgraduate in economics. He is the former chairman and CFD Corporation Bank. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep has served the banking industry for more than 37 years in various senior positions. His chairmanship in Corporation Bank had brought numerous awards to the bank. He put the bank on world map by taking keen initiative to partner with Commonwealth Secretariat for financing the youth as a social concern under the Corporation Bank ComSec Youth Enterprise Financing Program. He has also served as Executive Director of Central Bank of India and was also appointed as Chief Vigilance Officer in State Bank of India and Bank of India. In addition, he had also been associated as Chairman of Corp Bank Securities Limited, Cent Bank Home Limited, Cent Bank Securities Limited, and member of Board of Central Bank of India and ILFS, beside other companies in the area of finance, information technology like Rolta Group, retail chain of Wadia Group, and Being Human, credit rating advisory services, etc. Currently, he is the chairman of Messrs. CRAAS Capital Advisors, Messrs. Credit Rating and Risk Advisors Advisory Services Private Limited. He is a co-author of book Financial Inclusion, Viable Opportunity in Urban India. Welcome, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep on our show. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, you have heard what Dr. C.V. Anand Bose has mentioned. And when he was mentioning about the MSME and other small traders, he said that definitely if 0 year will be declared, then definitely the waive of the 1 year interest or even the installment has to be there. Similar, or the deferment of the installments. Similarly, for the farm loans, he has mentioned that once we will declare the 0 year, although he says the farmers has given the bumper crop last year, but we must reward them by deferring 1 year of their loan so that they will not be burdened and they will be doing more work this year also. Now, being a banking expert and your life is, you have spent all your prime youth in the banking only, and you know banking ins and outs, we would like to know from you your views on the 0 year. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, please.
Thank you, Goel sir, and all panelists. Good morning to all of you. I heard the views of Dr. Bose, who is very empathetically has stated that in certain area there is a need to declare as a 0 year. I fully agree with him. There are certain area, but not in totality as a country as a whole, in which will affect entire activities or entire sector of the society. I fully agree with him. As far as women, the household woman is concerned, who they have been working day and night, serving their family members with all 4 times. We are all beneficiary of that. We have I fully endorse his views. There has to be some recognition of their efforts, and we must, at least we can start from the home itself, and then we can, country as a whole, it can happen, and I fully endorse the view. As regards the education area is concerned, in the education area, there are 3 types of, one is a college area, the graduation, post-graduation, intermediate and above and below that. There are certain organizations, that is certain schools, they are already done till 5th o'clock, till 5th. In some schools, they have declared as they are promoting till even 8th. Because there is no there are no national competition for them. Therefore, because we have a child in our own house, so up to 8th class, there is a automatic promotion has already been given without conducting the proper exam. But at the same time, when we talk about same type of things in the higher education, in terms of international, you go to the international universities, there is a issue, because everybody will have a marking that last year you will be losing 1 year because other university may not recognize you as you are passed through or graduated automatically. So this will be a big challenge, and therefore I agree that if it is taken at international level, this year, particularly in the education, this can be brought about the changes which is proposed to be there. It's a good idea about, particularly on the education, because the most student has suffered during this period. There has not been outdoor activities for them, and therefore they are the most sufferer. Probably we have not realized because they are the young, they are not able to express their views. But the fact remains that they are the most sufferer in the whole pandemic year. So I fully endorse the view of Dr. Bose in respect of the education, in respect of the the household ladies or household workers. As regards the banking sector is concerned, I would like to put forth 2-3 issues which has already been considered the last year. The matter of waiver of interest during this particular period. The government of India has already, under Prime Minister leadership, Prime Minister's the declaration of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which has impacted most of the industry positively. And there are a lot of work is already being done. So the issue of restructuring of the borrower limits and the borrower interest waiver was already considered by the Supreme Court, a bench of 5 judges bench, which has already gone into various aspects. And there was a view, and which has been finally reached, that interest on interest, the compounding interest should not be allowed. It should not be done. And therefore, now that has already been implemented. Probably there is a need in the second wave. It was related with the first wave. Now, in regard to the second wave, probably this may be considered, or this may be, because there is a demand coming, this could be also raised, that during this particular period, from maybe from April onwards, April, May, 2 months onwards, the interest on interest again can be considered. Now, so far the other industries are concerned, there has been a restructuring of the account. Almost all the accounts have been restructured, whether it is a MSME sector. Recently also RBI has already issued the guidelines to restructure all the MSME account which are facing the problem. It is not sector specific, but it is in totality, it has been already permitted. RBI has issued the guidelines MSME sector that it should be restructured once again. So those exercises is already going on, and it is to be considered that before the end of the June, every exercise should be completed and implemented by September. So the financial sector has been fully protected. I would like to place on the financial sector 1 or 2 more views, because if I see the growth pattern last year during the, because of the 3, there was a contrast of GVC, GDP by around 23%.
I think
being shown as it was projected that the GDP for the 20 and 22 will be almost around 11%, which because of the second wave, it will come. Research sector is concerned. You want to say something, Mr. Goel?
Yeah, your voice has broken. Now you are at right.
Hello.
Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I find that so far the financial sector per se, I don't find there is a need to declare as a 0 year or something like that, because there is a positive growth. The workforce which was there moved back, and there is a positive production side. And so far my raw material in the banking sector, deposit side is growing with a 9 to 10% growth. There is a growth in the current, the credit side, there is a positive growth. So I find that looking to the problem, and I really appreciate the RBI governor who has taken all proactive steps wherever there was a need to address those area, which has already been addressed. And coming at this stage when the pandemic is going to be, because of the steps taken, vaccination, which has already been all under implementation in every state, there is a need. There is no need for the declaring as taking any steps towards the 0 year for the financial sector is concerned. NBFC, everybody has been allowed to take a call. RBI has directed that necessary steps to be taken so that the pain of the industry can come down. I am only now this second wave, I am only worried on account of 2 reasons which I can plead. One is this second wave has impacted sectorial wise. In one sector, one state, when the producing state is today is the first sector they have got impacted, there was a demand for another sector. Now what is happening is, like Maharashtra and Gujarat, they have been impacted for the production of the production of goods and services, whereas there are the other states when there is a demand. So the demand and supply gap, one side is that there is a demand and supply, it is also going to impact a lot. Today, if Maharashtra is going now, like a Maharashtra or Gujarat, going to have, but now the rural area is going to be impacted. In fact, where the pandemic is taking a root in the rural area, there is a need to, because the city area, rural, urban area, you are going to produce more, but where is going to be the consumption? When there was a demand, we were not able to supply. And example is about your oxygen side, which has impacted every state and is continuing to impact every state. So this is one area where I think there is a concentrate approach is required, so that the demand and supply can be matched. Somewhere when there is a surplus, it can be moved towards this. So my view is that the financial sector, whatever was required to be done, a timely action has been taken by the Government of India as well as by the Reserve Bank of India. And there is no need to disturb at this stage about the year changing or making a 0 year, because otherwise there will be large number of demand, different type of demand will come, and where by that time the situation will get stabilized. I am of the view that financial sector is resilient. There is no need to disturb at the present one. Wherever the corrective or steps are required, I think the Government of India as well as the Reserve Bank of India is very proactive in addressing those issues of different sector of the financial sector, and they have been able to handle it properly. One of the example is your, the stock market is bouncing back again, once again. The GDP is coming back again. It is already started showing the positive things. So according to me, financial sector can be leave aside, but yes, your education system up to beyond 10th class or higher class, and below class there is no need. This is already taken care as of today. And a household thing, yes. So for the marginal, Dr. Saab has also addressed the issue, or is rightly issued the street vendor. Now last year this was a issue I have also raised. To a very large extent, it was last year, it was already addressed. This wave, this particular time, certain people have again not been allowed to do the business on the street side. They are the most sufferer at the point. There is a need for them to taken care, so that some of the state government has already announced, some of the state government financially supporting them in terms of giving certain thing. I think it's a matter of time, maybe another 1 month down the line, everything will be settled down. So I'm of the view, firm of the view, that except the education system, rest of the system is taken care. There is no need to declare as a policy as a whole. If you want to declare, yes, but there are certain hits and bats. There are certain impact which will come, like Dr. Bose has suggested that tomorrow Ambani can come and ask that you may give me the waiver of interest during the whole last year. The entire system will collapse. There could be a demand. There could be legally, there could be demand. Unless those things are addressed and taken care, probably the present system where we are working and showing the all round of development, probably we will be able to beat with the present situation which we are facing. This is my absolute view, personal view. Government can take a view, contrary or otherwise. But this is my personal view, that as of today, there is no need to disturb. Dr. Goel, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Pradeep, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, for giving your views. And Mr. Ramnath Pradeep has giving his views very clearly. He says for education sector, he's with Dr. Bose. Yes, education sector, but he says up to 10th class, not to be disturbed, because already the government has given the promotion from first class to 10th class. Every students have been given promotion. But for the higher classes, yes, that is a requirement which we have to see how it can be done to be declared 0 year, because otherwise even the foreign universities or other universities will not accept the students who will be promoted without the examination. So that is his reservation. And the second, he says about the housewife, he's with Dr. Bose, that yes, we must honor them, we must give credit to them. Thirdly, about the banking, for which he says that last year already the interest was the installment and interest initially was deferred, but then the question came about the interest on interest, which the Supreme Court has given the judgment that no interest on interest will be charged during the time of that last year pandemic. Afterward, it was restored. But he says, again, because of the now this COVID returns in the second phase, that interest on interest can be again be waived off, but not any other thing, because otherwise it will impact very badly on the financial condition. He says that already India is improving all financially in all the sectors. So it is not required to declare as a 0 year. If we will declare 0 year, it will have more complications and implications than by not declaring, as far as the banking and the financial conditions are concerned. He says yes, for those street vendors, last year the government has given some package to them. This year again they are suffering because of the lockdown, so some package can be considered for them, although some state governments are already giving, but more packages can be given. But overall, we should not touch the banking industry or the financial industry, and not to declare the 0 year as far as the financial industry or banking industry is concerned. But otherwise, he says for education and for housewives and all others, if it can be done, it is beneficial for the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Mr. Niloli P. Rajshekharan. Mr. Niloli P. Rajshekharan is a writer, music composer, and CEO of Guru Management Consultants, Bengaluru. His creative and social activities include publishing 6 Malayalam novels and over 40 short stories. He published 2 English novels, King Pawn, based on Syrian civil war, and Azadi, based on the conflict in Kashmir. He has published Competency Web, The Corporate DNA, and several other papers. He composed over 200 songs for labels and independent music, currently promoting 3 YouTube channels. He is coaching and mentoring startups. He is having experience of 45 years of international director level. He worked in for-profit and not-for-profit organizations. For 15 years in financial services, Bank of India, Chase Manhattan, and Standard Chartered Bank. 10 years in oil and gas, Shell, ExxonMobil, Qatar Petroleum, and 10 years in non-profits, CGIAR, World Bank funded international system. 10 years in consultancy and teaching, MBA students, entrepreneurs, and corporates. He lived and worked in over 45 countries across continents. He is a management consultant, coach, speaker, creative writer, musician, and active on social media. He is a strategist on governance, performance management, leadership development, and HR. His expertise in management of startup, downsizing, high growth turnaround, and cultural transformations. He is a member of Mensa International. Welcome, Mr. Niloli P. Rajshekharan on our show. Mr. Rajshekharan, you have heard Dr. C.V. Anand Bose as well as Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, and both have given their views very strongly, which you have already heard. Only one point which Dr. Bose has highlighted about the impact on the social and as well as the economy of the country. So, and Mr. Ramnath Pradeep is very clear in his views that as far as education and housewives are concerned, he is totally agreeing to declare as a 0 year for them, with some selective cases. But for financial and for banking, he clearly says no. Now, we would like to know, because you are very actively involved yourself as a social as well as in the economy also. So we would like to know, keeping all those things in view, your views on 0 year. Mr. Niloli P. Rajshekharan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. It's always a pleasure to be on your show and with distinguished panelists. Really enjoyed the last 2 presentations by Dr. Bose and Mr. Pradeep. Every roadblock, whatever that be, is also an opportunity to change direction. I see that as this COVID pandemic as an opportunity to make reforms in areas which we have probably ignored for several years. So I'm coming from a slightly different perspective. I agree with the concepts what have been spoken so far. Going back to Dr. Bose, I think it's extremely important to recognize the homemaker who have taken an extraordinary load during the last year in whatever form. I think that needs to be decided, because they are one group of people who hardly get any recognition and they never complain. They work 24/7, nobody pays them. And it's a group that needs to be recognized because they are the real backbones of society. So I think I fully endorse what Dr. Bose has said on that front. Coming back to what Mr. Pradeep said, I totally agree with him on the macroeconomic aspects and policies. But I would like to touch on certain aspects of operational banking, which is not right now very conducive to the end user. I work with a lot of startups, and while like anything, like you have macro level policies, but in implementation, people don't do it the way it's intended. So the results and the benefits do not reach the people it's intended to. And thirdly, I would look at education, which is these are two areas I've been involved in. That's why probably I'll go into a bit more of depth there. There's also an area, as Dr. Bose mentioned, for resetting, because the educational policy is in place, but a policy is a policy, but you need all the tools and machinery and people to make it work. So what are some of the things we could look at? And related to that is also the issue that a lot of people are looking at online education, what is happening now, as a temporary phase that will go away. It may not. We don't know the end of this game. And whenever we have any system in place, it's important to take the best use of that system, not to see it as one of those things we'll get rid of very quickly. So a lot of online education is not delivering what it can. So I'll touch on some of those issues. And this is an opportunity. Call it a 0 year, call it a latent year, different terminology has been used. So while the students have to be managed properly, and unless there are international competitions or public examinations, they should be allowed to go through. But that has several implications. As I think Mr. Goel started saying this, because our education is on an incremental scale. So a student gets the conceptual capability in a level, and that's used as the base for building the next level of education in the next class. Now, one of the problems with a 0 year, if you start from there, is that they may not get all the conceptual issues that they need to gather during that year if they're automatically promoted. So you may want to review the whole concept and the content of these 2 years. And there is nothing wrong with it, because if you look at the syllabus today, and it is one of the recommendations in the education policy that the syllabus has to be substantially reduced. It has to come down to concepts and principles, the fundamental building blocks, which excite the children to go and explore themselves rather than learning by rote. So this is the bane of the Indian system, and I think it's high time to recognize that. So there are opportunities to redesign the learning system. Redesign, for example, what stops us from having open book examinations? A lot of things have to change, because in an open book examination, you cannot copy from any book. You're asked to digest things and present your point of view. As an example, if I'm given a story by, let's say, Hemingway, and ask me, what do I think about it? And if I'm a student of literature, I can't copy it from any book. If I copy it from any book, today it's easy to find plagiarism online. And secondly, I can be questioned on my point of view. And if it's not my point of view, if somebody else has written about that, I won't be able to defend it. So the whole concept changes to higher order mental skills in terms of analysis, critical thinking, which is what we need to teach children today. Because today there is no dearth of knowledge. Let's face it. You go on Google, you can find most of the things today. It's free. So your ability to process that knowledge and your ability to convert that knowledge to actionable points or to solve problems becomes a critical skill. And our education today is not delivering that. You're given a question, you're given an answer, you mug up the answer, go back. If you reproduce it well, you do well. That's a memory test. So I think there is a high time to start looking at the educational system from both the content perspective, reduce the content to absolutely what's essential, and they must get the essentials right. And secondly, the whole examination system could be re-examined at this time, so that you have a possibility of going to higher order mental skill development rather than learning by rote or memory testing. The third aspect in education also that we need to look at is redesigning for online classes. Today, what is happening is the teachers have not been trained to give online classes. So what they used to do in the class, they're standing in front of a camera and saying the same thing. Online classes have certain advantages and disadvantages. Engaging the student is a problem because they are not in the same space. So making it more interactive, getting people, the children to engage actively during the class is essential. Otherwise, you can put a video there and children can just watch. The second aspect is the online classes have the great opportunity to customize the learning for every student. Not every student learns at the same pace. Based on IQ, based on interest, based on attitudes, children learn at different paces. Now, an online program can provide those different paces to people by making it interactive. If a module is given to a student, and once they have finished it, ask them to come back. Some may come back in an hour, some in 2 days, some in 3 days, some may never. And that's a way of monitoring the performance and commitment of students. So I'm not going into detail here, but all I'm saying is the online classes have not been designed, nor the teachers trained, nor the students actually help to adapt to that type of learning. So if you take it as a 0 year or a latent year, it's not to just declare a 0 year. That 0 year has got a lot of consequences which can be used to improve the educational system, to align more with the new educational policy, which is a really good policy, but a lot of work to be done there. So I think there is some concentrated work required in that area to make our education consistent with the changes in the world. So that's my view about education. I'll stop there. Now, coming to economy and banking, as I mentioned, I completely agree with Mr. Pradeep about the macro policies, the Reserve Bank policies, all those aspects, they're pretty well being managed. I was a banker. I started with Bank of India, and my training, the very first training I had was in Bombay, which was a combined training college of Bank of Baroda and Bank of India. The training was 6 months. I don't think anybody gets trained in banking for 6 months today. Probably it's not required. But what I find is, along with the students or the people I coach and mentor as startups, they get zero support from the people on the ground, the managers in the banks. I'm being honest about it. They don't understand projects. They are doing pawnbroking. Almost every loan you go to the bank, they're asking for collateral. If any fool can lend against collateral. If I'm taking gold and lending money, I don't need any skills. Whereas the banks used to provide so much services, so much help. And that is missing today. See, on one side, Atmanirbhar and all these programs are pushing entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs many of them are dropouts. They don't have the academic skills. They don't have the financial skills to run a project. They have an idea which can be converted to a project. But zero support from banks in terms of their expertise, support, financial management, advice, nothing. And collateral is being insisted upon in spite of having policies to the contrary. I've had many examples where without collateral, the banks refuse to look at them. And I think that's where, there are high-level expectations and visions that are being set at the national level, at the board level of banks. And I'm very sure that Mr. Pradeep will understand this. But either it's lack of training, lack of attitude, or lack of incentives. I don't know which one, because I'm outside of the Indian banking system for quite some time now. I don't find any proactive interest particularly from the bank managers at the ground floor, to help entrepreneurs. Now, the other issue related to that is also entrepreneurs are not looking for loans all the time. They're also looking for equity partnerships. There are enough big organizations funding the big startups. I'm talking of agricultural startups. In agriculture today, one of the biggest problems is post-harvest technologies. We look at post-harvest technologies, we hear every day about bumper crops and a lot of it being wasted. Why? The post-harvest technologies have not been invested into, and I'm talking of very simple things. Very simple things like, storing, packaging, processing, marketing, exporting. There's nobody linking these things, and this needs very small startups in the agricultural sector. And I've given this example before in your show, I think, Mr. Goel, but it's very relevant here. We do some pineapple farming in the southern end of Maharashtra called Tilari. We grow pineapple 8 to 9 months, and the gate price that we can get, the best price we can get is about 10 to 12 rupees a kilo, maximum. Almost 10 rupees on an average. There are people who just come there, buy the pineapple in bulk, put it in a truck, and drive to Mumbai and wholesale it the next morning at 35 to 36 rupees a kilo. The person has spent 9 months, growing pineapple, taking all the risk and growing it gets very, very little out of the actual price of the pineapple. What is the problem there? It takes very little to set up a pineapple canning plant. But nothing. If you really look at it, just cleaning, cutting rings out of it, maybe putting it in sugar syrup or nitrogen packing or something, very simple units. Now, if somebody was to do that, and this is very backward Maharashtra I'm talking about, there are very few people who have that kind of entrepreneurship. But I had somebody who tried to come up with it from a very poor background. He had no collateral. He had an idea. He needed some financing. And he tried 2 banks there. I'm not going to name them. But he could get nowhere. Finally arranged it from private sector. We're trying to work on that. So what I'm saying is the banks have an attitude which is more targeted towards mid-range and higher range businesses. The lower range businesses are pretty much left to money lenders, private money lenders, gold bond brokers who charge exorbitant rates of interest, and that makes these startups unviable. So I would request, since Mr. Pradeep is here, to look at this issue. I'll be happy to pick this up later on as a different subject. But this is also a year where a lot of people have suffered, from street vendors to the lowest level of people. I totally agree with what has been said, that there has to be a discretionary element in these particular benefits that are being offered. Now, one of the problems in India is that even though we call it income tax, corporate tax is not income tax, it's profit tax. If it was to be on income, it would have been fantastic. Reliance, which does 20,000, 60,000 crores of business, can declare no profits at the end and pay no tax. Now that we have GST, if you were to pay 1% on turnover, just 1% on turnover as your turnover tax, you don't need IT department. It's pretty revolutionary, you know that. But everybody will pay tax, not income tax, actual income tax, sorry, not profit tax. So it's high time we start looking at how we have structured our tax system and the amount of cases. Why should somebody get into my expenses? I'm asking a fundamental question here. I should be billed on my revenue, which is what I'm collecting from the market. I pay 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever the government sets as my revenue tax or my turnover tax. And then what I do with that money is my business. Now I've got huge armies of income tax people questioning every expense of mine and say, why do you spend on this? This is not allowed, that's not allowed. Because they have to compute that to get to my profit. The amount of time being wasted, the amount of hassles being done, at the end of the day, probably we'll collect 10 times more tax if we convert it to 1% turnover tax. So I think it's high time to start looking structurally at some of these changes. Few countries have already changed to turnover tax. So what I'm saying is a 0 year, in any sense, is also an opportunity not to sit back and say, oh, it's a 0 year, nothing happens. No. What are the learnings from this? How can we improve our society? How can we improve our people? And which are the segments which have been ignored? And Dr. Bose said housewives as a segment, street vendors as a segment, and startups. If you're really serious about startups, need a very, very different treatment, and they're not getting it. If there is a second round, I'll go into more details, but these are some of the thoughts I wanted to share on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan, for giving your views. Mr. Rajshekharan agrees with Dr. C.V. Anand Bose as far as the housewife 0 year or the honoring the housewives are concerned. He agree up to a limit of the macro financing of the banking system, but he is not agreeing with Mr. Pradeep about the micro. And he says there are whatsoever the government of India has come out with policies during the pandemic were not implemented properly in the banks, and especially the banks in the level of managers level. And he says because of the startups which are going to be to change the business in India are not getting the support which they are supposed to get from the bank. Similarly, he has also mentioned about the income tax department. He says that instead of taking the tax on the profit, why not make it a turnover tax? And he is giving an example of an industrialist. He says they are making profit, but they are paying zero tax. So why not make it a turnover tax? So his views are 0 year is good for sector-wise things like those on a small scale, but not for the others. We should not disturb the others, but the 0 year can be considered Even for the education, he has mentioned how the education concept has to be changed. He wants that open book classes or the examination should be there, which is required now. Otherwise, if we will feel that now everything will be okay and we will be having no online classes, according to him, nobody knows how many more years it will be. So one has to be very, very clear how it has to be done. So according to him, we must find out the opportunities in this pandemic time. 0 year, we must declare for those sectors which really require, but otherwise, according to him, for the macro and other big sectors, we should not declare any 0 year. But we find we must revamp, we must revisit all those sectors and make a change which is very much required. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajshekharan, for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my next guest, and he is Professor Dr. Omen Memon. Professor Dr. Omen Memon is MBA, MPhil, PhD. Professor Dr. Omen Memon is the former Dean, Naipunya School of Management. He is the COO of Ellen and Hava Kottayam. He has done his PhD in management from Utrecht University, Amsterdam, Netherlands. He is the visiting professor of Illinois University, USA, and University of Lund, Sweden. He is the resource person of Faculty Development Program, trainer, management consultant. He is having 42 years of experience in corporate and academics, 17 years in academics, and 25 years in teaching. His specialized area is spiritual intelligence in management. Welcome, Professor Dr. Omen Memon, on our show. Professor Dr. Omen Memon, you have heard what Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep, and Mr. Rajshekharan has spoken before you. And they were very clear. Not, I will say, everyone is clear in their thoughts, but they have different views. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose advocates for the 0 year, especially for the academics, but he is having reservation that whatsoever is to be done, it has to be done in such a way that it should not impact the further studies of the students. Mr. Ramnath Pradeep clearly says that we should not touch the banking industry or the finance industry. It will be impactful. Dr. Anand Bose has mentioned about the honoring the housewife, which all the three has agreed. Mr. Rajshekharan has given details about the education. He says, why not open book examinations? And if we will declare the 0 year, it may impact many things for the students. But we have to change the system of the examination. We should be not that we just mug it and give the examination and pass it. We have to change the perception and the concept of the examination in India. And he is also of the view that it is, if we will declare the 0 year, it will impact the socio-economic condition of the country. But in sectors which are underprivileged, like small traders or the farmers or the students of the lower classes, yes, we have to declare the 0 year. Now, being an educator yourself, and you have seen the systems very, very closely, we would like to know your views, because the main topic, thing about the 0 year is the students. Because the maximum, as Dr. C.V. Anand Bose has mentioned, that the maximum impact of the pandemic or the lockdown was on the students. And we all know that if the student will not be trained properly, educated properly, the future of the country will be jeopardized. So we have to be very, very careful while taking any policy decision. So from you, we would like to know your views on the 0 year. Professor Dr. Omen Memon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. I'm so privileged to share the panel with the legends. I was closely listening to them all regarding the economy, the banking, and the education also. I think I'll focus only on the education. I think it is more easier for me. Before I move into my subject, I think we must salute the homemakers first, those who suffer just because of us, we being at home. And the second thing, we must salute the frontline health workers. Their day and night, they are slogging. I feel at onset, the 0 year itself, the naming 0 year, somewhere or other, I feel it is passing a negative feel. Rather than naming it as a 0 year, why can't we say it as or call it as a convalescence year? Because the country is sick. Convalescence means recovering process. So we need to do a lot to recover, and a lot to recover from this sick situation. We are sick. It is true. The day-to-day informations, news is what we see and read and hear about this pandemic situation is so negative. So when you look at the academic side, I feel for the last 2 years, certain universities, certain schools, certain boards, they have conducted examinations. Certain of examinations, the courses they have announced. Certain universities, they have announced the results. Certain universities, they are yet to announce the results, waiting for new admissions to come. Really in a chaos situation, what to do, and online classes are going on. As I said the last day, discussed with Mr. Goel the other day, when I spoke to one of my colleague in Lucknow, she was telling, when I call for a online class, the student says, I'm somewhere else. I'm in a queue. I don't want to repeat again. I don't want to into depth of that. Let me say that we do have a beautiful national education policy which need to be fine-tuned. The concept itself to be fine-tuned a bit so that we get the best outcome. I tell you the other day, maybe 2 months back, it's an incident in my home. I was hearing a fight between my granddaughter, her teacher, and her mother online. It's all about the examination. It's all about the examination, the result. A result examination was going on online. It's a Viva kind of thing. At the end, the teacher pronounced, you are given only 50% mark. Then my daughter asked, why 50%? Then the teacher said, you are standing with your kid, so there is only 50% mark. And there was a big fight. I can't stand. I was in front of the camera. Have you seen that I am pronouncing anything to my daughter? And that my grandchild was crying. Teacher, I have answered everything, and teacher gave me only 50% mark. This is one side of the story. How many such situations, chaos, pressure, tension is built up in our house every day when with the kids, with the infants. So why don't you think in a positive manner, online classes? Why do you want to insist on online classes for the classes up to 7th standard? We have to, even if it is there, why don't you give opportunities to the kids to interact with each other so that interpersonal skills can be developed? That is something we're lacking now. The interpersonal skills are not developed because the campuses are closed. So we have to fine tune. We have to fine tune the entire system. Up to 7th standard, why do you think we need an examination? We don't need an examination. Let them enjoy the campus. Let them interact with them. Let them develop a healthy relation, interpersonal relation themselves. Through fun, let them learn. And let the teacher, let the class teacher, let the subject teacher evaluate each student and promote her to the 8th standard. From 8th standard to the 12th standard, again, based on the assignments given to them, that's let them evaluate. Let them evaluate based on the assignments to be closely monitored. That develops a kind of research. A kind of research is developed. And from 12th standard, definitely we need to go for an examination. Final, at the 12th standard only, we need to go for an examination, clearing the eligibility for higher studies. So after higher studies, let the admissions be based on an aptitude test, irrespective of the state, the district, or the college courses purely based on the aptitude test in an all India level that the admissions takes place. So unwanted students, those who are not interested in medicine, may not land up with at an unwanted place. Purely based, and the UGC, let the UGC provide the eligible students more scholarships to them, so that it is open. And what are we going to do when at the convalescence period? At the convalescence period, the sick patient is not expected to make more activities, but we can do something in a very positive manner in a convalescence. 0 year, I don't want to say it again, and I mean that particular word 0, I don't want to use. At the convalescence period, why don't we utilize the student community, the youth community in a positive manner? See, we do have around 80,000 medicos, the students who are doing practicing medicine, I mean, just doing their medicines. 80,000 students across the country. We do have around 3.26 lakh of nursing students. The vaccination is the biggest problem what we face now. Why don't we deploy these people for vaccination? Finding vaccination and providing supply of vaccination, it is the job of the government. I think easily the government can find it. But we do have such skilled persons with us. If they deploy the entire medical and nursing students, and even certain extent to certain other paramedics also into the vaccination, to vaccinate people, the vaccination can be done more fastly. And at the same time, a cross-cultural pollination also will be there. They are made into small segments, small groups, and sent to various parts of the country. They're exposed to the different cultures, different situations. I think this we have to give a thought about this kind of an activities. Again, when you come to the university level, other university level, we do have around 54 central universities. We do have 416 state universities, 164 I think 164 to be deemed universities, and 316 private universities, and around 35 autonomous institutions, which are like IIT, IIM, AIMS, like that we do have. Let the students of these places, these universities, spend their time in a creative manner. Let them make them to do various activities. It is pandemic. It is your movements are arrested. Rather than going to teach them online, which has got certain way or other we are handicapped to deliver properly the subject. Why don't we ask them to do some kind of activities, make them into small group, and why can't we take them to agriculture farming, collective farming, collective dairy farming, aquaculturing or fish farming? Why can't you think about it? It is productive. Again, the cross-cultural pollinations will be there, taken place, more experience, lifetime experience. They are facing challenges. Each one of them are facing challenges. Still we mute the COVID, the pandemic situation. Why couldn't we go for this kind of activities? Definitely a question will be there. Then what is the fun of lockouts? I never advocate for that, to break the rules or to break the lockout system within the certain areas. Definitely we can bring them to work. Let them work till next January or February, and at the end of between a progress or improvement, the progress evaluation to be made by the concerned faculty members. Faculty members, if they are expected to do that, and by end of June, February, or March, let them prepare for for the examinations. Whatever courses they are doing, let them prepare for that. By the time, I think this is month of May, in 6 months' time, or let us say 8 months' time, our students, our youth is going to have hands full of experience, various experience. They will be interacting with so many people around them, outside their area. All across the country, they will be interacting. So that a positive vibe can be created. They are not idle at home. What is that they are doing now? If you ask, the other day, I happened to talk with one of my students called me, and he was asking me, sir, my fourth sem examination result hasn't come so far. What is that I have to do? And I asked him, what is that you can do? You can't do anything. You know what is happening with the pandemic situation in Delhi. Delhi offices are closed. University campus is closed. You cannot expect them to announce your results. How can it happen? It cannot happen. Your paper, bringing back the paper for evaluation to home means along with the paper, you are bringing the coronavirus also. So I am scared. I don't want to do that. The same thing will be with my fellow, the fraternity of faculty also. So what is the fun? Just making them. Why? Then his concern was that he is supposed to join for his higher studies somewhere outside this country. He want to go outside. You cannot help it. All over the world, same pandemic situation is happening. Why do you want to think about it? But if you put them into activities, creative activities, the things will change. They really know what our country is. I think to a certain extent they will stop thinking to go abroad and study. We do have beautiful institutions, beautiful organization, beautiful setup in this country. Then why somebody want to go out and learn? Then somebody may ask you, then why did you go? I was not aware. I was not aware it will be like this. So I went. I now never advocate to go anyone outside the country. We do have the best system in the world. Of course, there hitches will be there. Some lacunae will be there. That can be rectified if everybody works together. If everybody works together, underline that word once again. If a teamwork is there, the lacunae can be rectified. You need to think about fine-tuning the education system.
Okay.
I think Mr. Goel has started showing his fingers and smiling. That means I have to stop. Thank you. I conclude.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Oman, for understanding my expressions. Yes, the time is short. Now, I would like to ask the question, and I expect about one minute of answer only because we are 4 panelists. You are. My first question goes to Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Dr. C.V. Anand Bose, you were the first who suggested last year in the first phase of COVID to declare 0 year. After listening all the experts, and you are interacting with so many people around the year, do you still stand by that? And do you, as you know very well, the implications, financial implications also, as you have suggested, to give something to the housewives, after all, it's cost money. And if the central government has to bear, it will be heavy burden on them, as well as for the small sectors, as you have mentioned about the MSMEs or the farmers. If we will be giving them, it will be impactful. What are your views about that, Dr. Bose?
Yeah. I do not hold any fundamentalist view about 0 year. I'm extremely happy that a critical review of the concept has been made by various panelists here. So what emerges is that there should not be a blanket 0 year in every field, but there can be the 0 year concept in education, that too in a graded manner. And as far as housewives or the farmers, I think we perhaps forgot to mention farmers. They are concerned, okay, certain 0 year concepts can be applied there. As banking is concerned, there are two views expressed here. Of course, the former chairman said that there should not be any tinkering with banking. system is going on well, and of course, correction is being made by government. Government is proactive. But Mr. Rajshekharan said from his experience that not everything is so rosy with the banking. Even though policies are there, in the implementation, still it is not need-based lending, it is security-based lending. I remember when I was also a banker. So there are 3 bankers here. As probationary officer, when we went to State Bank of India, the legendary Mr. Talwar was the chairman. And the chairman said, you youngsters, you should learn how to lend banking. Banking should be on a war footing. Then somebody stood up and said, that is the issue with banking, sir. Why? Banking is in a war footing, which means we advance, they retreat. So banking cannot be left like that. What Mr. Rajshekharan said is also that there is a hiatus between the governmental policies in banking and the governmental practice. So there also a regarded approach has been suggested. There also, to an extent, the concept of 0 year can be applied. I think Professor Oman has also agreed with the concept. Of course, he would not like to call it 0, but Professor Saab, I think 0 is a very powerful, very complementary thing in saying. Einstein said, we owe it greatly to India, which taught us how to count, without which any worthwhile research would not have been possible. And mathematics is mathematics now. I think because there is a concept of 0, which was given by India. So I think 0 is not a bad word. So anyway, I share with you that we should not give any negative thought. I think the trail of thoughts that have come up here can lead to serious discussions and implementation of the concept of 0 year in a very, very fruitful manner. I also agree that we should not just say God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. We cannot just declare 0 year and leave it at that. We have to have a graded approach to this, a critical approach to this, and wherever the concept can be applied for the good of the community, it has to be done. And I also would like to add that the concept of 0 year should be taken as a global concept in which the United Nations or the WHO has to take a lead. Then only it becomes answer to a problem of humanity. After all, pandemic is a problem of humanity. And if the 0 year concept can give a full solution or even a partial solution, I think that's a concept which needs to be taken forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Now my question goes to Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Mr. Pradeep, you have mentioned that there is no changes are required. But last year, when the first phase of the COVID, we have seen that stimulus has been given and the loans moratorium was increased and the repayment. Why not this year? After all, lockdown is there. Okay, the central government has not announced, state government has announced, but the impact to the commoner is same. Whether it's for him, whether it's lockdown from the state government or central government is the same thing. But the thing is, till right now, for last now more than a month, almost month, when the lockdown is there, more than a month, many states are facing the same problem. The industries are facing the same problem. Why not at least defer the installments and the interest for the time being, at least for 3 months, Mr. Pradeep?
Sir, this has already been taken care in the recent policy which was announced last month by the RBI governor. These things have already been addressed. Deferment of the interest, even some of the industry, you remember last year Kamath committee was appointed and the Kamath committee was given sectorial recommendation that what should be those industry which has severely suffered, they should be given what treatment. That is still going on. It has been extended in case there is a need. So individual banks, individual industry has been asked to examine those things and take effective steps. No general principle has been applied, but so far as deferring the interest and installment is concerned, there is already restructuring for MSME. Guidelines have already been issued. Guidelines are under implementation for MSME, that during this particular period, take a cutoff date wherever it has been impacted and apply the interest rate, defer the interest rate, do the rehabilitation of those units can be undertaken. Not an issue.
Okay.
So far the agriculture is concerned, same type of things in the agriculture has been impacted, that because it is declared as a pandemic. As a pandemic, it is a natural calamities. So under the natural calamities, there is already a guidelines on this issue, which has already been under implementation. So
okay.
there should not be any on account of this.
Okay.
But only Dr. Rajashekaran has raised the issue of startup. Let me clarify that.
Can we come afterwards, Mr.
Okay.
Pradeep? We have no time now.
Okay.
Mr. Rajashekaran, what Mr. Pradeep has mentioned about the implementation of deferment, do you agree with this? Mr. Rajashekaran, please unmute.
Yeah, as I said, I totally agree with him on the macro aspects. It is only on practical.
No, I'm talking of the micro, whether this implementation of the restructuring, etc., taking place or not now.
No, I
at the
don't think
present
so.
time.
I know I stick to my view, but there is one more point I want to make. Two very brief points. One is about the name of the thing. You know, zero sits between positive and negative.
See, no, Mr. Rajashekaran, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Paucity of the time. Thank you very much. Now my question goes to Professor Dr. You have raised a very good point that this year, if the students will be given higher studies, not the up to 10th, we have already promoted. If they will be giving work, so they will get the work experience. But the question will remain same. Again, who is going to assess them and how the work is possible during the lockdown? Very short answer.
I think I have mentioned about the faculty members, the teachers. The teachers need to be with them. Without the teachers, how can it happen? Teachers should be with them as a mentor. They have to be. They are paid for that. I look at that in that way. They are paid for that. So
Okay.
they have to.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ahmed. So viewers, we have seen that today we have tried to check whether the 0 year is possible or not. And the experts have given their opinion. Yes, these opinions will be scrutinized again. And I'm sure that we have to keep more programs on this particular subject with different experts. And then only, because after all, if we are planning to give some positive suggestions to the government, one has to be very, very careful. After all, any decision taken by the government of India is going to impact not only one person, but it is going to impact almost everyone. And we have to be very, very careful. And for that, media conference with Lal Goel wants that we must try to analyze and give the positive suggestions, which today all our panelists have given their expert views. And I'm sure today's program is very, very enlightened, giving a totally different prospect about the 0 year. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Global TV, V4 Stream, News Gaon se Samvad Sarokar News, as well as it was shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor is to bring to you everyday new topic. But for last 10 days, we are doing an evening program, which is in Hindi for half an hour duration, where we are talking about the VIPs or not, I will not term VIPs, the great personalities, those who have reached on top from the very, very modest beginning. And we will want that they should tell our viewers how they have reached and what they have done in their life. And today's the program, which is called Kal Aaj Aur Kal Lal Goel Ke Sang, and our chief guest of today's program is Dr. Rajiv Anand, senior psychiatrist and marriage counselor from Mumbai. He is going to explain about his own life cycle from the very beginning till now. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you very much, Dr. C.V. Anand Bose. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramnath Pradeep. Thank you very much, Mr. Niloli P. Rajashekaran, and thank you very much, Professor Dr. Oman Memon. Thank you, all the viewers, for watching our show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.